You are listening to the APSE podcast, the Association of People Supporting Employment First, with your host, Chris Davies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Minnesota APSE podcast. We're very excited to be with you here today with Jake Leeser and Bryan Boyce. They're both with Cow Tipping Press, and very excited to learn all about that and that it entails. Before we do, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Minnesota APSE, if you are not familiar with it, maybe this is your first time, joining or learning about Minnesota APSE. You just stumbled upon the podcast today. Minnesota APSE is an action-oriented organization, and we exist to bring people together to raise expectations so that people with disabilities can be employed and contribute and assume their roles and responsibilities as citizens in their communities. Employment is the same wages, standards, responsibilities, expectations, and opportunities available to any working age adult. One person at a time, employment is the avenue out of poverty and isolation. And I know that Jake and Bryan, who are with us today, wholeheartedly believe that as well. Before we learn all about them, I just want to describe myself and give Jake and Bryan an opportunity to do the same. I am a Caucasian. I'm a white male. I'm bald. Today I'm wearing a kind of a checkered blue, gray, and white shirt. And I'm sitting in my office where I work. Jake, would you like to give a quick visual?
Yes. So I am a white male. I am wearing a dark or like a light gray shirt, and I am sitting in my room on my bed.
Okay.
Got a sweet pair of glasses too.
Yeah, oh, yes. And I'm also wearing glasses.
And Bryan.
Yeah, so Bryan here, I'm a white middle-aged man, hair, beard, got a blue vest and some sun shining in on a plant at the office that I'm working at here. Happy to be here.
All right, great. Thank you both. Well, let's jump into it here a little bit, and I'd love to learn just a little bit about both of your backgrounds. Jake, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I have disabilities. I have autism, or I'm on the autism spectrum disorder. I participate in a lot of Special Olympics, and I love doing that. I think I've been doing that for over a decade now, actually. I'm a big movie fanatic. I love to watch movies, and I will talk about movies a lot if you get me talking. I love to cook. I'm hoping to at least become a cook or own like a food truck one day. So yeah. And I love cow tipping too.
That's fantastic. So what are some of your favorite athletic events?
So far I love to do track and field, and I love doing softball and bowling.
Very good. I love movies too, Jake. I almost half the things I say throughout the day are a line from a movie, it seems like. So I think you and I could get along well on that. Bryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Jake, I didn't know that you did track and field. I'm a runner myself, so it's something we have in common. But yeah, me, I guess professionally and kind of identity and background wise, I am the sibling of a brother with intellectual disabilities and some mental illness. Which, like a lot of people who get involved in this field, that was an entry point into understanding the value and virtue of our peers along this particular line of difference. It's been such a gift and blessing to have him as a sibling. Hopefully vice versa has been true for him too. So that's kind of my original or foundational connection to disability. I was an English major in college. I have a friend who likes to sing a song from a musical, "What do you do with a BA in English?" But then someone else was like, "Hey, actually, you're doing what you're supposed to do with an English degree. You're pretty related to that in your work." And then what's the other piece? I taught high school, or I've worked with young people ranging from preschool to college age over my career, but that included being a high school teacher for a number of years in a variety of different cultural contexts. And then before cow tipping, I also was involved in helping to run an education nonprofit that helped train kind of the next generation of teachers. So if you put all of those together, that kind of makes a lot of sense about why I do cow tipping. It's drawing from all those different experiences to train young people to be teachers of creative writing, to folks with developmental disabilities, and publish and celebrate their work as a way of seeing new value in this form of human diversity.
Great. Thanks so much, Bryan.
And I don't watch too many movies. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. I think I'm going to have that Broadway musical jingle going through my head the rest of the day. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's jump into it. I'm sure our audience right now who are listening and watching might be wondering, what is cow tipping press? So let's hear a little bit more about that. What is cow tipping press? How did it start? What do they do? All those kinds of things. And let's start with you, Jake.
Well, for me, I joined Cow Tipping Press back in late 2018 when I had moved to Waseca from Faribault, Minnesota. Basically, for what I had heard about it back then, it was like a writing program or reading program, basically. Then I started joining it, and what it is now, it's a reading and writing class where people with disabilities get their stories heard, and it's a whole lot of fun that I have had in the past 4.5 years at least.
Yeah, I think Jake shares his personal experience there, and that's pretty good. Just broadly, we teach and publish writing by folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Again, as I said, as a way of celebrating this form of human difference. And one way we kind of sum up our mission is that we're about changing the narrative on disability. So not seeing disability as something that's a deficit or something to be pitied, or kind of this medical lens on it, but an identity that's valuable and that all the rest of society is missing out on when they don't choose to connect with and seek out and integrate into their home, school, and work lives. So yeah, what we say, we're changing the narrative on disability, and that is literal. Unfortunately, I don't have a book in front of me. I should, but literally, we are publishing.
I actually have a book.
Okay, Jake can do the product placement. Please grab it.
Yeah,
It's way across
Jake,
the
love to see
office
that.
from me. But we're literally changing the narrative by creating a body of work that otherwise doesn't really exist, because the infrastructure for folks like my brother, folks like Jake, the 500-600 plus authors that we've published, there isn't really infrastructure to have their work written down and created. But then we also try to live a new narrative by, as much as possible, working in interdependent teams of people with varying abilities, whether that's on our board, in our classes, or in some of our book sales and program outreach, like Jake's doing with interning this
Yes.
semester. So hey,
these are a few of the books that I have done or helped in the past. So this is Moon Made of Chicken. We got the Go for This, Go for That, Man, Go for That Man. Then we got Running Like a Wildflower. We got Whisper Trick.
And just to be clear for myself and the audience, you are the author of these books that you're showing us.
Yes,
one of the authors
and a bunch of other people that were in the class. We are all authors. Yes.
So it's a collaboration, but you are one of the authors. Very good.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so then let's see. I got a couple more here. I got How to Get Rid of the Goblin. Cliffhanger. I think this was my first book that I've done. Then Lick Plasters from the Wall.
These are classics. You've got them all.
Yeah, and
That's
I also
amazing.
got the best of two.
And you've been involved with Cow Tipping Press for 4 years. Is that what you said?
At least, yes.
Yeah. But that is an amazing body of work.
Yes.
In 4 years. I mean, that's incredible. I love the titles too. They were really drawing me in. That first one, what was it again? Moon Chicken?
Moon Made of Chicken.
Moon Made of Chicken.
Yes.
Moon Made of Chicken.
Yeah, a little additional context I can jump in with. All the titles are pulled from excerpts of writing in the classes, so the titles all come from the author's works. All the visual art, we work in partnership with organizations that are more focused on visual art by people with disabilities, but it's all by folks with disabilities, maybe MSS, Achieve Services, Interact Center. And then, yeah, each class that we teach has a book. One of those books is associated with a class. So there's up to 10 students in the class. Their best work is put together into a book and then celebrated with a release event in a coffee shop or a brewery or an art gallery or a park or a library. And that's part of where we're getting out into the community and really sharing these voices. So, and yeah, Jake is prolific.
Yes, and there's about at least, I think, 3 to 4 stories each from each author put into the books.
When you do an opening at a coffee shop, for example, like Bryan just mentioned, Jake, did you read from the book? Is it?
Oh yeah, you'll get to read a couple of your stories from the book, because I think my first one I did a few. I did a couple short ones and I did one long story that I had written.
I would love to attend one of those. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, but I have a car. I can get places, so I would love to attend one of those someday soon.
Well, major plug. We have like 4 or 5 coming up, and I've got a flyer I can share with you. So we'll throw those. We'll throw those in by the end of the podcast.
For sure, we are definitely going to. And I was even thinking of that as well, Bryan. That maybe when we get close to the end here of our conversation, let's make sure folks know where they can reach out and find that information. That's great. I would love to attend one of those. All right. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about the things you're involved in, Jake. From what I understand, 2 of the real hallmarks of Cow Tipping Press are literary classes and the apprenticeship program are a big part of what Cow Tipping does. And I'm hoping, Jake, you can talk to us a little bit more about, what that means. Tell us about the literary classes.
All right, so literary classes is basically just like the writing portions, getting the stories down, and then doing the public readings. So the start of the class, it's about at least, I think, 5 weeks? Is it right, Bryan?
Yes, usually.
Yeah, 5 weeks for a class. We do different prompts from fiction, nonfiction, poetry, journalism, or drama, or I think do it yourself, see what you can come up with. We'll probably do at least 3 to 4 prompts or 3 to 4 stories on each week. And I think we'll also practice going up front and telling our stories in front of the class to get us ready for the public reading.
Yeah, that makes sense. when you're going to present something, it's good to practice it. And looks like Bryan has something he wanted to share as well.
I was just dumping the release flyer in the chat. I'm multitasking, sorry. But
Oh, that's okay.
yeah, I think Jake gives a pretty good summary of what the classes look like. We work to make them as inclusive as possible, both in the reading and writing elements. Basically, if you use words in some way, we'll figure out how to make it work. Don't have to be a writer or a reader. Sometimes you'll have horrible memories of what English class was like for them in middle school or something like that, and that's not what we're about at all. We honor people's voices where they're at. And yeah, well, when we do that, often the stuff that people create from kind of a literary perspective is more advanced, more interesting, more divergent, more experimental than what regular authors out there are doing, or what people are sometimes paying lots of money to go to a college program to train their brains to do. So it's a way of highlighting, to generalize, highlighting some of the assets that a lot of people with developmental disabilities bring to the table naturally and are worth teasing out and exploring and sharing and cultivating and valuing. So
yeah, and all of these stories that we have done are written in their own exact words, in the author's exact words.
It sounds like you really make it accessible for one to express their creativity. What I mean by that is you don't have to necessarily be a professional writer to get your words to print and to be
No.
able to use your creativity, because it sounds like you have as Bryan said, an inclusive, collaborative group, and it allows one to sort of get what they want to share, in print, and they don't have to come to the table with all the perfections of the English language, if you will, which certainly I personally have always struggled with, but it hasn't stopped me from being, creative. And so I love everything I'm hearing, and reflect back. Am I hearing this right?
yeah, well, I think there's just a couple points there. Like I said earlier, one, just building the infrastructure takes a little more work when it's folks who might need supports to write, or even just like a community that presumes that they might have something to say or that it's worthwhile. So we as an organization are really that infrastructure. And then, yeah, what Jake said about exact words only, I think, is a core principle of our work. And it can be very easy for, say, if someone doesn't write by hand, what we do is we might have them work with a staff or volunteer. Sorry, I dropped a charger. And speak what they have to say and have that person record it, write down word for word. It's often very tempting as a staff person or a family member to be like, well, I'm gonna fix this grammar, or actually maybe you shouldn't talk about that because it's inappropriate, or don't you want to say what you were talking about last week? But we're like, nope, you write down exactly what they say, whatever it is, wherever it goes, and that can be really beautiful. But it's that helping someone do rather than doing it for them is, like, of course, a core important thing as someone who's a care worker or an interdependent ally or a staff or family, whatever you want to call it, but can still take so much reminding and is still like it's a hard mindset to stay in for a lot of folks, but we really work to cultivate that in the folks that help in our classes.
I love that. It sounds like an absolutely fantastic process. Very, very cool. And what about the apprenticeship program? Tell us more about that, Jake.
All right. So I started the apprenticeship, I think a few months right after my last class as like a student. Basically what the apprenticeship is, I co-teach or I help the teacher out. We help I help decide on the prompts with the teacher. I help students that need help, if they need help writing or if they need help thinking of a subject to write on. My favorite teacher that I had did was Natalie. She basically was also my staff. So we got to plan each week as a staff, because since she was my staff, and we just had so much fun doing it, and we got everything basically figured out right then and there, and we basically had the whole 5 weeks planned out ahead of time before the class had started.
Jake, I remember it was like, I think February of 2020, maybe one of the last things either of us did that involved a lot of people. Disability Advocacy Day at the Capitol happened then. And
Yes,
we knew about COVID, but it was like, I think this is okay to be in a group. A week later, it's like, nope, not okay. But you came up and you were like, hey, when's the apprenticeship open next year? Because you had maybe seen Anna doing it the previous year. And the application wasn't for like 6 months, but it was like, you're a go-getter. I like this. Like, we'll let you know in 6 months when that application is open. So he applied, and he was one of 6 hired for that next year, though. So that meant that probably a lot of your apprentice teaching was on Zoom rather than in person, right?
Yeah.
Your third class with Natalie. That was
person, right?
Third
class was Natalie was in person. The others were over Zoom, because my last one was, I think, the first, or besides Natalie, the other 3 classes that I had done were over Zoom.
Yeah, that's where we had the reading at the pizza farm. Natalie's cow tipping story is worth its own podcast, but we won't dive too deeply into that, probably for sake of time. But just, yeah, one of our teachers, we hire generally undergraduates. She was a graduate student. We're kind of interested in this work, and we have a lot of people who want to do it and then work alongside former students to teach the class. So, but yeah, just I think another thing to kind of bring it back to thinking about jobs and whatnot. As APSI, I'm sure, is familiar with, there's this idea of the 3 Fs: food, filing, and filth, as the only jobs that people with disabilities can do. And, a total respect to those jobs. They're really, really elemental and important for keeping our, public spaces clean, or helping, supply chain manufacturing to happen. But I don't think for any class of person that should be the only opportunity that someone might be able to do or be interested in, right? And I think by leaning into sort of the creativity or quirks or differences that people have as folks with disabilities, rather than trying to help them be more like our typical employee, we see the value of our students in classes for sure, but then also the value they can bring as paid co-teachers, teaching apprentices, a few different names we use for it, of the classes, and that kind of the arts can be a pathway to employment for folks too. Community integrated, albeit part-time, but paid the same as our teachers. And yeah, totally different from some of your standard sheltered workshop fare.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the core principles of customized employment is that the possibilities are limitless. And what you're doing, Jake, and what others are doing within Cow Tipping Press are a great example of that. That there are so many different possibilities for any of us, as human beings. It's about finding our core strength and our passion and our fit, in society, and not being pigeonholed into things. So it sounds like you were a student.
Yep.
And then you were a teacher.
Yes.
And now you are an intern.
Yes, I am.
So tell us all about that. Tell us what it's like to be an intern, all the experiences that you're having.
All right. So, the intern is about 12 weeks program. And I forgot which week this is, Brian. I think
that's a great question. 5, 6, maybe halfway through?
Somewhere around there. Basically what I'm doing so far, for what Brian and Rachel, one of the co-directors of Cow Tipping, is helping me do, I'm going through about like 6 batches of books right now, and finding my favorite ones, writing the authors names down and their page numbers. And most of the batches have the books that I had shown you in them. So I got to pick at least a couple of my favorites. I've been trying to call former students who are ready to become apprentices and getting them hopefully ready for the next semester or the next year. And I forgot what else I'm doing, Brian.
Yeah, well, Jake is working remotely. As you mentioned, he lives in Waseca. That is my hometown. That's where my brother and parents still live. So I live in the Twin Cities, and most of our cow tipping programming takes place in the Twin Cities. But some over Zoom. Like this semester, we have a couple classes in Atlanta and Mississippi. And because I go home often enough, it has been easy to also run a program there and contribute back to home community. So that's kind of how the connection with Jake happened. But anyway, we're doing a remote internship, but I was back in the area a couple weeks ago, and we barnstormed town and got our books stocked in like 6 different places.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's labor of love, selling our books and getting them out into the world. Like plug out there into the universe someone who's got a bigger distribution channel and whose job it is to get books out there. That would be the people to partner with to reach, not hundreds, but tens of thousands of folks. We've probably reached thousands over the years, though. Got to give myself a little more credit. Anyway, yeah, this was a cold day, and Jake and I drove around and went to stores. And I think maybe you were a little nervous at first, Jake, but eventually you kind of got the pitch down. Like, hey, to stock our books, you could do it on commission. You could buy them outright. Here's what cow tipping is. And a lot of people knew what it was. What was it? Yeah. What did you think about that day? I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Oh, I definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun driving around, getting books out, getting the word out on cow tipping, and seeing a lot of people having fun and knowing about cow tipping and what it's doing with people with disabilities out there.
And how is working remotely? It's a 1-day-a-week internship. How has that been for you? Have you liked the flexibility to kind of build out your days, or has it been hard to be self-disciplined or to not feel as connected to community?
It's been easy since I started doing the internship. I can do it remotely for what Brian had said, and I can work on anything for what he gives me. And I'm working on the 4th and the 5th batch of books right now and trying to get them all done, hopefully before I leave for my trip soon.
Yeah, Jake's going to Hawaii. That's its own story. But wait, you talk about Hawaii.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, if you want, but I have another important question. You also work at Quick Trip. I won't tell anyone. Are you ever able to double dip, and when it's real slow at Quick Trip, be paging through some books and pick your best ofs, or they keep it too busy there to make it work? I feel like that's the new economy.
Busy.
People can work 2 jobs at once when they're remote. Okay.
If I'm on break, then possibly yes.
Well, no expectations of that. That's just kind of a silly question. Good compartmentalizing.
Very good, very good. And so now, and for some time now, you've been working with colleagues that might identify as somebody with a disability and folks that don't. How has that experience been for you?
Oh, it's been interesting seeing all of these people who've been or near or are have or I'm so sorry. It's been very interesting working with all these people and seeing how they react to people with disabilities, and working with them directly is a whole lot of fun.
That's great. That's great. And what tell us a little bit about your hopes for your future career.
Well, hopefully with cow tipping, maybe later on down the road, I could become a teacher and teach my own class here in Waseca, or at least get a class in my hometown, which we had tried down in Faribault, but hopefully later down the road that can become a possibility.
I love it. I love it. And you're working at Quick Trip. I always think of Charlie Barron's now. He's a comedian. Do you know who Charlie Barron's is?
Yes, I've seen some of his stuff on the Quick Trip page on Facebook.
Yes,
He's
yes.
just hilarious.
Yeah, he is really funny. I went and saw him in person over the summer, and now I always think of him when I see Quick Trip.
Yeah. And Quick Trip has been a lucky place that I have gotten into. They treat all my coworkers treat me with respect, knowing what I'm on and knowing what my disability is. They all treat me with respect. I have a lot of fun with my coworkers. They all love me.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's an important part.
Great place to work.
It's an important part of the Wasikee economy these days because the grocery store closed down. So like number one grocery is Walmart, but number two grocery is Quick Trip, and like literally you can do your grocery shopping there for better or worse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you probably stay busy.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Very good. Very good. Well, before we go into some of our final thoughts, let's segue back to sort of promoting some of the things you have coming up. I don't know how this will work over Zoom, but I'm just going to go ahead and go back to that chat where
I can try projecting that, like sharing my screen with it too, but I just put it in the chat in case you had any better technical way of putting that flyer up.
Yeah, you know, if I had it minimized from the beginning, then I could go in and share it. I'm not quite sure how to
share mine.
If you think you can, try it.
I think I could, but it says I'm disabled because I'm not the host, so that's
correct.
More work than it's
correct,
worth.
But you know what? That's okay. I'm gonna make you the host, and then have you pull it up.
Hey.
Okay.
Can we see that?
I sure can.
This is a draft poster, but like all the information is accurate except maybe there's a comma missing here or there. So, Jake, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'll do the quick rundown if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Monday, November 28th, that's at the Institute on Community Integration, which is a part of the University of Minnesota. They just built this beautiful new building on the river, and that's kind of in the middle of the day, but we're hoping maybe some folks from the University of Minnesota are able to join that one. I don't have offhand which students and which partner orgs are reading at each event, and we don't know the book titles until a week or two before, but they'll all be great, I promise. Saturday, December 3rd, you said that you were willing to make a nice, haul somewhere, Chris. If you'd like to go to Decatur, Georgia, we've actually been to that coffee shop. It's a nice one. They'll be releasing a book. I don't think any Minnesotans will be there for that one, but that's great. And then we have one happening at the Northeast Library, Northeast Minneapolis. It's another one during a day. That's a nice building. Close to a lot of restaurants and breweries and shops if people want to check them out. And then we have two that are happening on Facebook Live. You see December 7th and then December 8th. Those are Georgia and Mississippi ones. So we teach the class over Zoom, but then we also can do a book release over Zoom. And they're in the Georgia case, they're complementing it with their own book release at a coffee shop. But that's fun. You can just tune on Facebook Live. You can ask questions, put them in the chat. Another way of interacting with folks. And then Wednesday, December 7th, not to play favorites, but this is a beautiful location. It's the Fresh Eye Gallery.
It actually is a beautiful place. That was my last public reading as a apprentice.
You've been there. Tell us more.
It is, for what Bryan said, it is a very beautiful art gallery. It's amazing for what it is and all that's in there. All the art is amazing.
Yeah, featuring a lot of art by people with disabilities, but not only by a lot of our cover artists through this partner organization. And it's kind of a new gallery in South Minneapolis. And there might be some live music, we'll see. But they have a Yule Mart, holiday market. So you can go there and also buy holiday gifts that have a purpose behind them. So that's December 7th. I'm gonna stop the share.
Fantastic. And then when you get a chance, Bryan, just make me the host again. So when we wrap up.
So you got some powers. I'll
that's
do my
right.
best. You keep going and I'll do that
wrap
while
up. I can close this out in style, as they say. That's great. I took obviously I could go back and see that a different way, but I took a picture of it as well while you had that up. I'm going to get those in my calendar so I make sure I'm tracking, what's coming up. I'll definitely. So Jake, of the ones that Bryan just talked about, which ones will you be at, or will you be at some of those?
I would say the ones that I'll probably be able to do will probably be on Facebook. It is a little hard trying to get rides up to the cities.
Well,
I don't have a lot of staff.
This podcast is also dueling as our morning meeting. So yeah, our goal is that I would be down with Jake at least once over the course of the semester, and then we get you to the cities for something. So one of these would be a possibility, but
Right.
Maybe we'll be getting you to a training or a Meet the Apprentices next year event or something. But
Yeah.
we haven't yet figured out when Jake's making the big haul up here. So
Sounds good. Sometimes you couple it with some music, you said. Is that right?
Oh yeah. When I was last there at the Fresh Eye Gallery, there was some live music playing, probably like a Minnesotan type band. At least a couple people were playing there.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're ever looking for musicians, I know a lot of musicians. So either one of you let me know if you're ever looking to collaborate with somebody.
All right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, great. So just finally, just love to hear some of your closing thoughts on your hopes for a more inclusive future, what that might look like, anything you might want to share with our audience today.
Bryan, I think you should go first. I got nothing.
All right, I won't defer to Jake on this one. Can I add just a couple notes from a couple things I wanted to say first, and then I'll also answer that. Try not to be too long-winded.
Absolutely.
One, I know a lot of this debate around, paying people sub-minimum wage or kind of competitive integrated employment. Sometimes there's a divide between like, well, that person has less significant disabilities, so it's easy for them to, work out in the community. And this person has more significant disabilities, and I represent them, and they need this sub-minimum certificate. I think there's a lot of things people can do, work and recreational wise, that involve the community. And as much as possible at cow tipping, again, kind of we work with people who use words. That is one form of exclusion, but we're a literary program, so that's kind of what we have to do. But we work with a wide variety of people as for sure students, but also as our teachers, including people who communicate a lot more divergently and kind of, you might not expect what they're going to say or how they're saying something, including people for whom kind of that interdependent access takes a lot of creativity and reimagining. But I think the title of this podcast is "Make the Road by Walking," and that's really what we're trying to do. So I don't want to present just that we're only working with a certain type of person with disability. Jake is one example, and there's plenty of others in our on our team. And then just another, the other note isn't that important. So my vision for a more inclusive world, I think, again, better inclusion of folks with and without, I think, intellectual and developmental disabilities in particular, that kind of 2% of the population, as far as I know statistically, has so much generative potential in our home, work, school, and recreational lives. Of course, by and large, that is good for people with disabilities when they are meeting and connected to a wider variety of folks and making networks and friends and having job opportunities and stuff. Sometimes just our apprentices or people in similar roles, just meeting people, new people or networks in being in community and integrated spaces is what leads to opportunities for them to sit on boards. We do have someone who's a former cat tipping apprentice and intern who's sitting on the sub-minimum wage committee at with the state, or to do fellowships or to get other jobs or to be on not just this podcast but other ones. So just getting out often is what leads to some of those connections. So that, of course, that's a good thing, but it's also good for I think even more importantly, people who are less familiar with this population and think differently when they're hearing from someone. The gift that I've been given, to circle back, of being a brother to my brother and learning from his kind of different way of being in the world and communicating and whatnot. That's made me a better, more nimble, more creative, inclusive person. And I think we have that opportunity in so many spaces. We've just scratched the surface of what inclusion can provide the world. And there's all sorts of intersections too, right? Like when you are more inclusive of people with disabilities, I think you're more likely to also think about marginalizations along lines of race or LGBT identities or others, and that places that are thinking about inclusion on those lines can be entry points for inclusion of folks with disabilities too. So there are ripple effects with that empathy, that inclusion, that ability to kind of be flexible and nimble and make the world a place that, messy as it is, works better for all of us. So I think that's the potential.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've really created a platform, if you will, if that's the right word, where you can have little communities, sort of one at a time, working together, interdependently, interactively, people with disabilities, people without, making each other's lives more enriching and better. And
Yeah.
I firmly believe that as human beings, we all need to be a part of something. And Jake, you certainly are a fundamental part of something. You're an author, you're an intern, you've been a teacher, you have a bright future, and a bright current, as I'm saying. I mean, you're making things happen right now, as we speak. And I'm excited to see all the things you'll do, with your future.
Thank you.
Any closing words for our audience? I don't mean to put you on the spot, Jake. It's okay to say no, but if you have like a favorite saying or words of wisdom, we'd love to hear them.
If you would love to join cow tipping, please do. It's a whole lot of fun. Even if you don't have disabilities, I would join it as well.
Great.
A lot of roles for a lot of different people available.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. You've definitely piqued my interest in all the things that you're doing, and really enjoyed hearing more about cow tipping, and specifically more about what you're up to, Jake, and all the things that you're doing and contributing to. And I'm looking forward to seeing you down the road.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you so much again, both of you. Jake Leeser, Bryan Boyce, Cow Tipping Press, for being with us here today and giving our audience a chance to learn more about Cow Tipping Press and the ways they can come out and support some of the upcoming author releases and so forth. And what is, just for the audience, what is your website? I mean, I know we all just Google things now, but
here's your test, Jake.
I think it is cowtipping.org, or is it .com, Bryan?
Cowtippingpress.org. Though, truth be told, I just registered the domain cowtipping.org yesterday for a redirect. So you're ahead of the curve.
All right.
Very good. So cowtippingpress.org. And I meant to ask at the beginning or somewhere along the path here, how did you come up with the name Cow Tipping Press?
Ooh, quiz number 2. Do you know that, Jake? I'm not expecting you to, but I'm curious.
No, I don't remember. I've heard the story on it a while ago, but I can't remember. I know you had came up with it when you were in college, or one of your roommates had, I think.
I like the roommate story. No, kind of. No, so I said all the book titles, they come from excerpts from poems or pieces that are written in the books. And so same with the name of our org. The very first poem we published was a poem called Cow Tipping in the Dark. So representing our authors' words as much as possible front and center, and trying to get away from cheesy names, again, with due respect. Potential, achievement, friendship, special, like those aren't the things I think of when I think about, Jake or authors or my brother. I think about like the creativity, the random conversation I might have, which might be about cow tipping. So makes for a fun, mischievous logo and culture too.
It sounds like a very appropriate name. And yeah, I appreciate all that you said on there. Okay, great. So now we know the story, and it's a great one. Well, thanks again, everyone, or both of you for being on today. And just want to remind everybody out there that if you believe it, you can achieve it.